was only when I met a special someone that I realized what I was doing. Hiding. See, after this is real life, and I wasn't ready for that. I don't know why, exactly. I do know that I don't want to end up like my father, whose whole life revolves around work. But I see that now.
Hello and welcome to the Hypertrophy Odyssey, chapter 307. It is the last day of the week, aka the Big Bang Attack workout. I am feeling pretty good right now. I am very excited for this workout. But anyways, to the main subject matter for today. The forever student. Now, the main reason why I wanted to talk about this is because this has come up a couple times this week for me. So I was like, oh shit, I could talk about this. So the idea of the forever student is the idea of a person who goes to secondary school, aka college, university, all that other stuff, but they perpetually stay in the system. Now, there are people that never graduate, that keep pushing the ball forward, and there are people who get out, go into the workforce, and then try to come back in to become the forever student. It's like they are not ready to join the workforce. And there are a lot of people that are like this. And I want to just analyze and talk about this because this is part of a weird infantilization of a person where they can never really grow up and enter the workforce. The idea of toiling at a 9 to 5 is just heartbreaking to them. But we'll get into more details about that and all the other stuff. But I'll say this personally. Thank God I'm out of school. I fucking hate school. School is annoying as shit to me. I do not like it at all. It became very much a joke, which I will explain later why it became a joke for me. But still, school is not my thing. I know it is for certain people, but it wasn't me. So I can say it from the other side. I am a forever not schooler. I could get out of that completely. If I had to go back to school again, I'd rather just do something else completely. If I have to go to school for something, like let's say business, there you go. If I want to go get like my master's in business or something, fuck that. I'm doing anything else that I can to avoid that. So that is just how I see it as. But we'll get into the ideas of it, the idea that why people do it, and more so along the lines of what causes people to want to forever continuously be learning, but never actually doing anything and all that other stuff. A weird delayed gratification to the point where there's no more gratification, you're just delaying everything. So we'll talk about that and a lot of other stuff when we get to Mother Base. All right, so started this day off with the single arm lat pull down. But anyways, back to the main subject matter for today. The forever student. So the main reason why I wanted to talk about this was because it had come up a couple times in a few different aspects of my life. And it is a very interesting subject because it does come up every once in a while. You talk to somebody that may or may not know what they want to do in life, and they think about going back to school, which is fine. I think there are levels to it. I don't think that it is a one-stop shop. I think a lot of the time, the issue with going back to school or doing something like that is that most of the time people end up doing it for the idea of the structure and rigidity that school offers someone, and it blankets them from having to basically face the future, really. And it's very interesting because a lot of the time I don't necessarily blame people for getting into something like that cycle where they continuously go back to school studying different things, because a lot of the times they end up making the decisions as to what they get into school for in the first place at a relatively young age. I mean, we basically force these kids at the age of 18 to figure out what the hell they're going to do for the next 30 plus years. And I mean, like, there are certain people that, like, they can't even understand what the hell they're going to eat for breakfast tomorrow. You know, they can't decide that. So the decision making aspect of it is part of the issue, because then, like, they have to kind of decide what they want with their life early, which some people have, but other people don't have. And some people never get that at all. And I think the idea of being, quote, stuck, end quote, doing one particular thing is very unappealing to them, but also there's also a certain level of fear to that as well, which is quite understandable, especially because, you know, I feel like a lot of the fear mongering that has happened amongst people that are older, that are like, you close your eyes, boom, you're 50 all of a sudden. You've been doing the same thing for the last 30 years. Good job. Congratulations. You're old, you know, whatever. And even recently, I went out with a friend who used the term golden handcuffs in terms of his job, because at this point he is set, basically. His job pays him well. He's getting enough money. He doesn't need to do anything else. And there's no real need to go anywhere, really. And it's very interesting because it's like, it's a weird, like, locking down that certain people just cannot live with, which is an interesting fascination in the sense that it's more of a personality based ideal where for some reason the person likes the structure and rigidity and the freedom, the technical quote unquote freedom that education offers them, but not the freedom and self-reliance that the real world would offer them. So it's like there's like a limit to the freedom that they want, but they don't want the full freedom to go do and pursue whatever they want. Because I think there is a safety net in the sense that once you're in a student or you're in the forever student phase, you can just say, oh, I'm in school. Oh, I'm still studying. Oh, I'm doing this. And that kind of absolves you from having to figure out everything all at once. And thus that makes it so people will kind of just keep kicking that can down the road and hoping that something up ahead is a trash can, but sometimes that trash can never comes. And then they're kind of stuck being this, what is essentially an overqualified Starbucks person, like they end up going into something that they'd have no real interest in, but because they've done so much schooling, they don't really necessarily need to do anything else. It's kind of like people who end up getting like PhDs that aren't doctors, that type of thing, or master's degrees and things that they aren't necessarily even going to pivot into. Like, yes, you can go back to school, obviously, if you know what you're going to do. This makes sense. I know somebody, my brother, who got to go get his master's after, and he ended up going into that field, and it's been great. And that's the entire point. Like, that makes sense, but he was not a forever student. That's the thing. I think that's becoming more of a issue where people will go back to kind of try to find themselves in education, which is very weird. It's like the education system, or at least college system, has made it so they want these people to forever be there with them, so that way they can either extract their money, and then that gives them the safeguard of, oh, you're a student, so you don't have to necessarily know what you're doing. There's still a bit of a absolvement of the future for them because you're studying, and it's interesting to see that. And it's interesting, too, because there are certain people where school isn't for everybody. For me personally, I do not like school. I'm not a big fan. For me, school ended up at the end there becoming a joke, basically, because a lot of the times my classes were just literally do these 4 assignments, 3 of which are due the second to last week and the last one due on the last week. That's it. And it was like, at the end of the day, it ended up becoming just a race to do them all nearly at the end of the week, the last 2 weeks. So it'd be a waste of basic time for me. So I realized that. And the thing is, I work decently under pressure. So I was very much like ahead of the curve and basically like aced all of my classes at the end stretch there. I'm not even tooting my own horn. This is more of a just, I knew what to do. And after a while, once you realize half of college is literally following the exact rubric to the point where it is ridiculous, you can ace anything really with like a modicum of effort and some research and Google. And it's just interesting. Even now with AI, it probably makes it even easier. But it is something that makes it so schooling to me is just a complete joke. It's not even anything worthwhile. Would I go back? Hell no. But I would understand if somebody were to go back if they know what they're doing. I think that going with no real plan is not a good call for the most part, just because you're just going to be kicking that can down the curb, and you need to understand why you're doing that, or at least figure out what you would want to get your degree or learning in. So then that way you're not just basically wasting your time and just sacrificing your future for your now, because your now is unknown and you don't want to do some self-reflection to figure out what is the unknown in you that wants to get out. And we're back. Welcome to the workout debriefing. Exercise is not filmed. None. Exercise is skipped. Also none. Got everything in, thankfully. Anyways, as you can see here, I'm not in the normal spot. My nephew is running amok upstairs, so I'd rather just not be in the other room. So I'm here. But anyways, back to the main subject matter for today. the forever student. Now, the main reason why I wanted to talk about this was because it came up a couple times in my life this week, actually. And it was just something that is a very interesting subject matter to me, because it's like, this, I feel like, isn't necessarily something that is new per se, but it is something that I think you see more often than not because of social media, plus the forever trap that is school. I mean, we can look at student loans kind of kicking in after you get out of school as a reason why, one of the reasons why they might just say, fuck it, I'll just stay in school, you know? There are a lot of different reasons, but that's just one of them. I think personally, a lot of the people who go into it is just more along the lines of never really getting to that next stage in life, really kicking it forward into adulthood in its entirety, which I understand in a weird way, but I also don't like school, so fuck that. There are people who like genuinely the entire tasks and like task system and rewards and all that other stuff that school represents. Women, but generally speaking, most people aren't like that. There is a certain level of appeal in the sense that the longer you stay, in theory, you should be getting something that could be paying off bigfold in the long run. So, you know, your doctors, your lawyers, your whatever else that takes a long time to get a degree in. But a majority of the time, the people that are in this little cycle aren't those types of people. They will instead go off on their whims about things that they think they want to do realistically, but it all really just depends. And at the end of the day, they don't really commit to anything because they don't have to necessarily. This isn't their career at that point. This is just them trying to continue the cycle of schooling, you know? Part of it, I feel like, is the idea that, hey, you are 18, figure out what the fuck you want to do for the next 40 years is a little bit of a tough question to ask some 18-year-old, but at the same time, it doesn't necessarily even matter per se, that part, because sometimes people don't even ever discover what the hell they're willing to do for the next 40 years. Shit, they discover it when they're 60 and then they croak in 2 years, so it's a whole other subject for a whole other day. But the thing is, when it comes to school, I think that it is just a fantasy land for people to be able to escape the realities of the real world. You know, you have to be careful not to be stuck in this forever cycle, to think that, oh, if I go back to school, maybe I'll make even more money. That's not necessarily true. You have to maximize the things that you're good at the best of your ability. If you're really good at school, think of going into something school related. Don't just keep going back to school and just getting massive amounts of debt to the point where you're more than 6 figures in student loan debt and you have a degree in Shakespearean theater. You know what I mean? Like, the fuck are you doing? With that being said, tell me what you think in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions about this one. Also, let me know if you like the idea of finishing videos in here. I would love to know that. But anyways, thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video with anybody who may or may not like it. I will be back on tomorrow with a new video. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I will see you in the next one. Keep it heavy. Stay safe out there and stay warm. Peace!